The year was 431 BCE, and Athens stood at the pinnacle of human achievement. The Parthenon gleamed white on the Acropolis, a temple to Athena and monument to everything Athens had become. The city had invented democracy, defeated the Persian Empire twice, built a naval empire stretching across the Aegean, and created art, philosophy, and drama that would define Western civilization. Yet that spring, Athens made a decision that would destroy everything. They went to war with Sparta. The strategic error wasn't the war itself. Conflict between Athens and Sparta had become inevitable as Athenian power grew. The mistake was hubris. Pericles, Athens' greatest statesman, stood before the assembly and declared that Athens was invincible behind its long walls, connecting the city to its port at Piraeus. They could abandon the countryside, bring everyone inside the walls, supply the city by sea using their unmatched navy, and wait out the Spartans, whose land army couldn't breach the fortifications. It was brilliant strategy, built on one fatal assumption, that nothing could challenge Athenian naval supremacy and that their walls would protect them from any threat. Pericles couldn't have known that the greatest enemy wouldn't be Sparta's spears, but an invisible killer that his walls would trap inside the city with devastating efficiency. In 430 BCE, plague struck Athens. The exact disease remains debated. Perhaps typhoid, typhus, or a hemorrhagic fever, but its effects were catastrophic. Thousands of refugees packed inside the long walls created perfect conditions for epidemic. The disease spread through overcrowded streets, turning Athens into a mass grave. Bodies piled in temples. The social fabric disintegrated as people abandoned dying family members and priests refused to conduct funeral rites. Then Pericles himself died of the plague in 429 BCE, and Athens lost not just a leader, but its moral compass. The demagogues who replaced him, men like Cleon and later Alcibiades, lacked his wisdom and restraint. They saw only opportunity in crisis, using the assembly's democratic processes to pursue increasingly reckless policies. The consequences rippled beyond Athens. The Delian League, Athens' alliance network that had become an empire, watched their supposed protector stumble. City-states that had contributed wealth and ships to Athenian power began questioning whether submission was worth the cost. Sparta, meanwhile, gained allies simply by promising liberation from Athenian domination. In 421 BCE, exhausted after 10 years of war, Athens and Sparta signed the Peace of Nicias. It should have been Athens' moment to rebuild, to reconsider their strategy, to consolidate what remained of their power. Instead, they made a decision that historians still study as perhaps the greatest strategic blunder in ancient history. In 415 BCE, Alcibiades, brilliant, charismatic, and dangerously ambitious, convinced the assembly to launch a massive expedition to conquer Sicily. The plan was audacious: capture Syracuse, dominate Sicily, use its resources to outflank Sparta, perhaps even conquer Carthage. Success would make Athens the undisputed superpower of the Mediterranean. Failure would be catastrophic. The assembly, drunk on visions of glory and desperate to reclaim their pre-plague confidence, approved the expedition. They would send 200 ships, thousands of hoplites, and their best generals to Sicily. It was a gamble with Athens' future as the stakes. The Sicilian expedition became an epic of escalating disaster. Before the fleet even sailed, someone vandalized a hermae, sacred statues throughout Athens, in a mysterious act of sacrilege. Alcibiades was accused of involvement and, rather than face trial, defected to Sparta. Athens lost its most capable commander before fighting began. The fleet reached Sicily and laid siege to Syracuse. But the Syracusans, receiving Spartan military advisors and reinforcements from other Greek cities, proved far more formidable than Athens anticipated. The siege dragged on for 2 years. Athens sent reinforcements, throwing good money after bad, stripping their defenses at home to supply the Sicilian quagmire. Meanwhile, Sparta reopened hostilities, fortifying Decilia in Attic territory on Alcibiades' advice, creating a permanent base from which to raid Athens' countryside and silver mines. Athens was now fighting on 2 fronts, their treasury draining, their subject cities rebelling. In 413 BCE, the end came in Sicily with apocalyptic finality. The Syracusans, led by the Spartan general Gylippus, defeated Athens' fleet in the harbor of Syracuse, a stunning reversal given Athenian naval supremacy. The Athenian generals, Nicias and Demosthenes, attempted a desperate overland retreat with 40,000 men. The Syracusans pursued them, harassing the column as it struggled through hostile territory. At the Asinaris River, the Syracusans caught the Athenian army. The exhausted, thirsty Athenians broke ranks and rushed to the river to drink. The Syracusans slaughtered them in the water, the river running red with Athenian blood. Thousands died, thousands more were captured and enslaved, many sent to die in Syracuse's stone quarries. The generals were executed. Of the massive fleet and army Athens had sent, almost none returned. The news reached Athens like a death sentence. They had lost 200 ships, tens of thousands of citizens, and their aura of invincibility. The empire began to crumble as subject states saw their opportunity. Sparta, meanwhile, gained allies simply by promising liberation from Athenian domination. In 404 BCE, after Sparta's final naval victory at Aegospotami cut off Athens' grain supply, the city surrendered. The long walls were torn down to the music of flutes. The democracy was briefly replaced by the tyrannical 30. The golden age was over. But here's what makes Athens' fall both tragedy and lesson. They weren't destroyed by superior enemies, but by their own choices. The decision to crowd everyone inside walls during the plague, the choice to pursue Sicilian conquest instead of consolidating peace, the inability to recognize when ambition exceeded capacity. These were democratic decisions made by citizens voting in the assembly. Democracy had given Athens greatness, but democracy also enabled the demagogues, the overreach, the refusal to accept limits. The same system that produced Heracles also approved the Sicilian expedition. The legacy isn't that democracy failed Athens. It's that democracy is only as wise as the people practicing it, and fear, ambition, and wounded pride can make even free citizens vote for their own destruction. Was Athens' fall inevitable once they built an empire that violated their own principles of freedom? Could wiser leadership have saved them? Or was the democratic system itself flawed in its susceptibility to demagogues and popular passion? And what does Athens' tragedy teach us about the dangers of overreach, about how even the greatest civilizations can destroy themselves through hubris? Share your perspective below. If this story of democracy's greatest triumph and most cautionary failure resonated with you, hit like and subscribe for more tales of civilizations that reached for the stars and fell to earth. Because Athens' echo reminds us that our greatest strengths can become our fatal weaknesses, and that the freedom to choose includes the freedom to choose wrong.